I don't usually get political. Well, I guess I started out. Oh, I put my gum out. I started out kind of political on my channel. Don't go back and watch my starting videos because you may be offended. But anyways, I said what I needed to say because a lot of people don't want to say it. You know, it's too bad that two sides of the political parties can't get along, because then we'd probably live in a perfect world. But I have my money on whatever happened in Minnesota. Prayers go out to everybody. Let me just say that. I'm not a flashy YouTuber that wants to draw attention because of some incident that happened. That's not what I'm about. But my prayers go out to everyone affected. But my money is on, I know exactly what happened. I don't want to say nothing because then I'm siding with this side or siding with that side, and it's you know, people lose what the word is, they lose full scope of what's going on. It don't matter why or how or who. It just matters that something bad happened. It's a tragedy, and it should be you know, there should be some sort of help to fix whatever ignited that situation, whatever started it. But people, the narrative put out there right now, let me just say this. The narrative put out there right now about this thing that happened is not what people are thinking, and not what people want to think happened. I'm going to tell you right now, because I can put two and two together, and that's all you need is 2 hints. That's all I'm going to say. I know exactly what happened. But it just kind of intrigued or motivated me, I guess that's not a good word, to tell this story. I got my sweater on. I wear 2 sweaters. I have many in my cupboard, but I have my particular 2 sweaters that I wear. And it is cool enough to have to wear a sweater today. I've never in my entire life remember a June like this. Never, ever, ever. So anyways, one time, I guess I can just say it was my uncle. Me, my uncle, and another relative. Me, my uncle, and another relative, and my new baby were staying in my uncle's trailer. Now this was in a time when it was just a 3-season thing. I guess that's what you call it. It was only open from April to November. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, but what matters is no one was in the park. No one was in the trailer park at all. We were the first ones to stay there because he had a heater in his trailer. And I guess the other ones didn't. I don't know. It's irrelevant to the story, but no one was in the trailer park. And the trailer park didn't have outdoor lighting until they had like maybe 3 lights in this time. Maybe it was either March or April. I don't remember. But it was very dark. Let me just say the trailer park was very dark, and we were the only trailer in there. And there's a house on the side somewhere, probably less than a mile away, where the owners lived. And they were home at the time. So we had a good little trip, but I had a new baby, and I was nursing, and I was sleeping on the. Was I sleeping in the? I was sleeping in the back room, yeah, on the king bed, on the king size bed. And they were, my relative and my uncle were sleeping. It don't make no sense. Sleeping at the front of the trailer or something. I don't remember. So I hear a knocking because I'm awake with the baby. I hear a knocking, and I said, "Who's there?" And they said, "It's the authorities." I don't like to say the P word on my videos because then they get on a whole new algorithm that I don't want to be on. So I said, "What do you want?" And they said, "We're looking for so-and-so, my uncle." I thought, what the hell? My uncle at that time was living with family. You know, we were all taking care of him. He was not well. Let me just say that. And he'd been with me for the last 3 or 4 days. And I said, what do you want with him? And they said, we're here because he committed a crime. And I thought, this is too far-fetched. None of this makes sense. This is too weird. We're in a trailer that we're not even supposed to be. No one is supposed to be in this trailer. Let me just say that. No one is even supposed to be in the park. We just had a free. The owner just let us stay there. Let me just say that. It's almost like people thought we were purposely hiding away from the authorities when we were not. So I said, show me your ID. Well, it's that, that glass, and then the nighttime, there's no lights. And he's trying to flash his flashlight on the thing. I said, I can't. He's put his ID up to the window. And I said, I can't see that. I'm sorry. I'm not opening the door for you. I said, we're alone in this here trailer park. At that time, I didn't have a cell phone. This was a long time ago. My uncle didn't have a phone in his trailer. I said, I'm sorry, but unless you want to come back in the morning, I am not opening this door for you at all. He said, ma'am, you got to open the door for me. I said, no, I do not. I believe my safety's at risk. And I don't know if you're who you say you are. I don't know if you're the authorities. I mean, I can't see. And it's dark. So by that time, the commotion had caused my uncle and my other relative to wake up. So they come out, and I guess they'd rolled out the window and seen the ID and opened the door at that point. Well, it is the authorities. And he comes in. I don't know if there was another one with him or just him. And he said, we got to talk to your uncle. And I said, well, he hasn't done anything, so I'm going to be listening in. And they said, well, we can't talk to him in front of you. So they took him in the back room where I'd been staying and questioned him and talked to him there. Well, he's not really, he's got some issues. He's not really on the ball about things. He's just freaking out. This is the worst time that anything could happen. It had to have been 2 o'clock in the morning. So the officer comes up and talks to me, and I say, listen, I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to tell you my side of whatever's going, what I know. And that man's been with me for 4 days now. He's never by himself, blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, who are you? And I said, well, I'm his niece. So, by the grace of God, I guess I seem believable and trustworthy. I don't know. But I was telling the 110% truth. By the grace of God, I think we all had to get out our IDs. I don't remember. By the grace of God, what had happened was my uncle had only had 2 girlfriends in his entire life. One used up every cent from him. My uncle lived with her. And what had happened was she left they were together when they were young. They were high school sweethearts or whatever, even though he didn't went to high school, but around that time period. So the first lady had been, his childhood girlfriend or whatever. And then she went off, got married, had some kids. That ended very badly. So what does she do? She comes to our town, and she found me outside one day, and she said, I'm looking for your uncle. She recognized me. She knew me. And I said, well, he's over there. He lived right across the road from me at the time. I said, he's over there. So she moved into his apartment with her 3 kids, and my uncle, being the good man that he was, he supported all 3 of them, and or all 4 of them, and took them to their activities and paid for all that, everything. And one day, she just packed up and left with the kids. And he got word that she was back at her daddy's house, and he loaded all her stuff up in a truck, all her furniture, all her possessions. He didn't want none of it, even though he'd paid for most of it, or if not all of it. And he drove that truck up to the daddy's house, and he said, come get your stuff. I don't want nothing to do with you anymore. She had a new man. And he didn't want to hit her or fight with her or nothing of that sort. He just said, take your stuff and have a good life. Bye-bye. And then he wasn't with another lady for a long time, and he had that lady's name tattooed on his arm for his whole life. But that was his first love. That was the love of his life. So once she left him, he was not dating or having another girlfriend for, geez, I don't know, frig. It had to been, I don't know, at least 10 years. I'm sure it was over 10 years. So then he met this other girl, and I didn't like her. She gave me the heebie-jeebies, but she was company for him. And, you know, of course, again, he pays for everything. It was someone for him to take out to dinner, someone to take to the movies, someone to just, you know, companion. He needed a companion. And once in a while, they would go off on their own and stay at the trailer, and then together. And but people would complain about her. They wouldn't complain about my uncle. They'd complain about his wacky girlfriend. And then they got a little apartment for a little bit together for a couple of months. And she would always have male friends over and things like that. She was just using my uncle. She probably did like him because he was a kind man, but she was using him. You know, he'd go to work and come back, and there'd be different people in the house, and he didn't like that. So what she had done was she knew someone in the trailer park. Now, I don't know if it was the owners in particular or someone had called her and said, yeah, he's at the trailer right now. They had broken up. And they'd said, he's at the trailer right now with some young girl. Well, that young girl being me, and I'm his damn niece. So she got her panties in the bunch and decided to file a false report that he, earlier that day or the day before that, had assaulted her, physically assaulted her, and threatened her, or whatever, just trumped up the charges and everything else. And so she called the authorities, made that report, and said he's there at the trailer with a young girl. So, of course, what are they going to think? They're going to think, we better get this piece of crap, right? And if I hadn't been there with him, I'm not saying I saved him. I'm just saying I was the buffer, because if I hadn't been there with him, they would have definitely just taken him into custody, and that had been the end of that. But I explained that his ex-girlfriend was, she had some issues. She was off her meds, most likely. And, I had proof, alibis, whatever you need. He was not near her. And he most certainly was not threatening her. And, but, they're free to do their investigation or whatever they need to do. So, after that, I would tell everyone the story, and they'd say, well, you got to open the door for the authorities. And I said, no, I do not. If I can't see your ID and I'm by myself and I'm in the middle of nowhere and I can't see nothing, you can come back with a warrant and bust down that door if you need to, but I'm not opening the door if I believe my safety's at risk. So it just goes back, if you're wondering why I went on a tangent and told this wacky story, it's because the people that got harmed today, like I said, rest in peace, they opened the door and they thought it was the authorities. It was a man dressed as an officer of the law with a replica. Well, we don't even know yet. We don't even know. It could have been a real officer of the law. We don't know, because they even had the car that looks like a police vehicle. So you don't have to do nothing without, if you think for a minute that something's off. Like, we know everybody around here, so we pretty much know, and I'm pretty vetted when I can, if I need to see the proper authorization. Kind of can't fake that too much around these parts, but I'm just saying, if you think for a minute, you can say, listen, something doesn't seem right with this. I haven't been in trouble. If you're getting into trouble and then the authorities come to your door, then obviously it's the authorities trying to get you. But if you haven't done nothing wrong and something happens out of the blue that's a little strange, don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call your local station and say, hey, I got these 2 officers here, and I'm just trying to verify that they're supposed to be here. You can check for your safety. Don't be a pain in the ass and just do that because you did something bad and you want to cause trouble. But if you think that something's off, you know, there was a guy in up there in Canada, emphasis on the duh, and those people up there never learn. But anyways, he was a dentist. He went on a spree, and anyways, he had he was a dentist, and he had spent probably a year doing up a real police looking car in his garage, and he was driving around terrorizing the town. That was a horrible situation. That was a mass casualty event. It was horrible. But anyways, I'm going to wait for the ice cream man. I'm just, it seems like I'm living a life of leisure here, but I'm getting stuff done, and I got to go out in a little bit. And I usually wait until 4 or 5 o'clock when everybody's rushed around on a Saturday. And then I go and do something. I try not to go out on Saturdays. Anywho, I will let you go, but that's just my little wacky story. I gotta write my book. I got a lot of it written, but maybe no one will read it. Something that seems interesting to me, maybe it's not interesting to other people. Well, don't watch my damn videos then. Bye.